What's happening? You got the Retro Gaming Hippie, and today I'm coming at you with yet again another game review. And I'm going to stick to the RPG titles that I love so much. And this is yet another game that I didn't play back when it came out, and it is a classic series. And we're following up the last game review I did, and we're going to take a look at Phantasy Star 3 for the Sega Genesis. But before we get started, today's video is sponsored to you by Pac-Man Glass with some Obsidian Stout. Now, released in 1991, like I said, I didn't get a chance to play this as a kid. Phantasy Star 2 was released in 1989, yet it was another game that I didn't play as a kid either. I didn't own a Nintendo or Sega Genesis, plus I was about a sophomore, junior year, actually graduated in 1991, so I might have played a little bit of Commodore 64, later D&D games, but I really wasn't playing a lot of video games back at this time. So this was my first look at this game. I did play some Sega Genesis later on in the early 90s, 93, 94, and even on the Sega Channel at one point for a brief amount of time, but I never really played a lot of video games again until I joined the military and got into the PlayStation 1 and 2 a bit more and stuff of that nature. But I do not own this on the Sega Genesis, but what I do own is the fantastic Sega Genesis collection on the PlayStation 2, which I've talked about before. I don't emulate. I have a collection discs such as these, so I can play a lot of classic titles. It's a fantastic one to pick up at a very good affordable price, especially if you love the PlayStation 2 like I do. Now, a couple disclaimers when I talk about my take on this role-playing game is I really don't follow storylines in role-playing games. Just not my thing to sit there and read text a lot or something like that and try to remember storylines. I just like to play them to see the mechanics of the game, the creativity of some of the game and the items and how those mechanics work, the graphics, the sound effects, and, is this something I would want to buy and play again later on and get that, play factor out of it. And for the most part, yes, a Phantasy Star 2 is something that I think is a game that you probably got your money's worth back then. However, I found it to be very clunky in a lot of ways, and I'll talk about that a little bit when I show you some of the video here. But overall, it's not a bad game. It gives you a lineage line, which definitely, I think, boosts up the play value of it, meaning you can take different paths through the game by decisions you make to marry folks throughout the game. I don't know how much that really makes a difference overall, but it gives you something worth going back and playing through because you get to play with maybe some different characters, maybe some of the dialogue's a little bit different. I really doubt it changes the places you have to go and the things you have to do in terms of things you have to get done to defeat the game, whatever path you take, if you kind of follow what I'm saying there. I did not have, obviously, the directions and hopefully a lot of maps that came with this game, but I did have an online strategy guide that I followed off of Games Frequently Asked Questions, which is a great website for a lot of walkthroughs of these RPGs. I do also recall having to go to a map type of a walkthrough just to figure out what continent I was on at what time during the part of the game and how to get to different areas as I used the walkthrough. So hopefully back when you purchased this, you got a lot of maps or one really big map that kind of gave you a zoning area of the continent or the worlds you were dealing with because it was kind of hard to navigate that game. I had to use two different little websites to use as I played through it, which is not a big deal, but just I could see how that would be difficult back in 1991 when this came out because you didn't have the internet like that, for one. Also, it seemed kind of slow and clunky in the menu screens, and I'll kind of show you what I mean when I show you the video screens here in a second. And that overall, I think, kind of did affect it. I did play through it and finish it, completing, one lineage line, and it was okay, but it's probably not something I would pick up and go back and play again anytime soon. If you are a big fan of Phantasy Star or the series, then I'm sure this is something that you would, of course, go back and play through in that regard. It has great music. I think graphically it's really good, especially when I compare them to the Commodore 64 RPGs that I so much love, because those are things that I played when I was much younger and played a lot more. These definitely have that beat when it comes to sound and graphics and stuff in terms of that. But what these still lack that I love about my Commodore 64 games is that I can change the name of my party to suit my needs. And of course, I'm rocking wrestlers, Randy Savage, Miss Elizabeth, Ultimate Warrior, Dingo Warrior, Vince McMahon. When I'm playing the RPG, I don't want those guys to die. I care about them. When it comes to this, they just give me these preloaded characters. Who cares if they die? But with that being said, let me just show you a quick little video with a little bit of narration of the game with my high-tech setup, and then we'll wrap this video up. Kill the lights, Skeletor. So this is an overhead map of one of the continents you're on. You do get a chance to navigate the worlds a little bit faster later on in the game. You have a character that changes their form, which is a cyborg Ren, who I believe was in the first game and is a part of this series. But I don't recall it being a vehicle. It was just more or less you could go over water and things like that. I'll show you the sound here, the sound in the towns, and then sounds in the battle. Picks up the pace with the sound. You're in a battle. Characters look kind of interesting, little stars, little funky guys. I don't know what they're called back there. I didn't have directions or anything. It doesn't say. One of the gripes, when I talk about clunkiness of the game, I'm going to hit pause here. You've got your characters on the bottom. Their hit points on the top, and then their magic type points on the bottom. I have yet to see, other than sleeping it in, how you can regenerate your magic points. To your right, you got 4 different options. The bottom right is to run away. The bottom left is a one-time round attack where you just physically attack with what you have. The spinning top up there is a continuous, so you just want to put them on autopilot, continually physical attack. They'll do that until you start hitting buttons to make them stop, and I don't recommend it. The upper right-hand corner is then the option screen where you can do items, your magic, fight, or just block, and I'll show you how we break that down. So I select that, pick a character I want to do something different with. In this case, we'll say Gwen. And then what do I want to do with Gwen? I want Gwen to use an item, maybe a healing item. So now I got to cycle through that menu, and I got to select who I want to give it to. And so that's like 6 or 7 button presses just to get to an action command. Like how the noise changes when you pick up the fight. And then we'll make our way into a town where you get the basics such as healing items, weapons, armor, and a place to rest, place to save the game. And you can alter your magic in this game to strengthen certain areas. I found it to be, something interesting, but not a huge viable thing. So let's kill the lights, get the lights back on, and I'll give you my last little take of it. So there you have it. That's Phantasy Star 3 on the Sega Genesis, my take on it. Not a game I would certainly go out and pay a lot of money for unless you're a completionist or you really love a Phantasy Star series. As somebody, role-playing game just to pick up and play, definitely you don't want to pay the money for unless you're emulating, or of course you get this disc that already has on it. Honestly, I'd like to hear the opinion of somebody who was a Phantasy Star role-playing game fan back in the day and say, was this kind of a letdown? Because honestly, going from Phantasy Star 2 to 3, I kind of felt like this game seemed like a little bit of a letdown and they could have probably done better. But I don't know. I didn't play it back then. Just now, it's not something I would have in my system other than on a compilation disc. So next up, I think I'm going to do a little bit of a little pickup video of lots of things that I've picked up recently in the past 2 or 3 months at thrift stores or trade events that I attend and things of that nature. As I kind of restructure my video game room, I think I'm going to put it in a different area, and then I'll crank out another role-playing game review maybe the next month or so. So remember, I'm the Retro Gaming Hippie. I don't buy nostalgia because I am nostalgia.